Imagine you're a business and you're constantly confronted by people who get to post online whatever they feel. You could be having a good day, you could be having a bad day, whatever day you're having, someone may be noticing, and it could also be impacting their day too. Then imagine you're a customer who has a bad experience with a business, you go to post online and you end up finding yourself with a defamation proceeding against you. It's something that we are finding more and more common at the moment. Dr. Karen Sutherland is from the University of the Sunshine Coast. She's our specialist here on Ticker, talking about social media for business, and joins us now. How are you?
Well, how are you?
I'm doing really well. This comes from a story that you sent me earlier in the week about a woman in Brisbane who had, from her perspective, a bad dealing with a vet for her animal, and said that the vet seemed grumpy, spoke about the medication, and it has not ended well for her.
No, it took about 6 years to actually get to this point. But
years.
So she had about it took 6 years in court to actually for her to be charged with defamation.
And what was the crux of it? Why did it take 6 years?
I just think it took that long in the courts. Like I don't know. The legal battle went on, and she kept fighting it as well. So that sort of drew it out. She had what she perceived as a negative experience, and then she went to town on Twitter, the vet's Facebook page, on her own Facebook page, and also on True Local, which is another sort of like Australian local review site. And the vet wasn't having it, and so on principle, he fought back and charged her, had her charged with defamation, and she had to repay about $30,000 in damages.
So this has happened because she's gone on True Local with 7 different posts, obviously somewhat of a personality clash between the two. You can't always say the customer is right when it comes to these things, because quite often the customers can be having expectations that don't match what the service should be. We all know people can be difficult. We also know that not all businesses are perfect. How do we deal in a situation like this, where people should have the right to be able to express their dealings with a business, but also business owners should also have a right to be able to confront them about it?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's a real power play, isn't it? And I know that I'm often speak to small business owners, and they feel like sometimes their businesses are damaged negatively with reviews, particularly on Facebook, that of people who really didn't have any sort of cause to write such things. So they feel powerless in responding. But on the flip side, we should be able to talk about our experience, because that sort of peer review is so powerful. That word of mouth can actually make or break a business. And you want to share your experience if it's a full one, to stop other people having and going and having the same one. So so it is a real power play. And I guess trying to actually get recourse. What I found interesting was that there was actually some sort of consequence for this person posting a negative review, because normally that doesn't happen. Try and get a negative review taken down from Facebook is almost impossible. So you can only watch it if it's against their community standards, but apart from that, there's really no recourse.
What I find interesting, though, is the fact that the defamation proceedings, I mean, we know defamation in Australia is pretty strong. It's probably a good thing for a lot of people, to protect a lot of people from the fact that these days you could say anything about anyone. It doesn't need to be based on fact. It can be based on opinion. It can be based on competition. It can be based on the fact that not everyone likes each other. I guess one of the things that we've seen recently is that media organisations have been fighting against that, because it's been determined in the courts that, in fact, if someone writes a nasty comment on, say, the Ticker Facebook page, it's up to us to have to monitor that. Otherwise, we are the ones who get sued for defamation. And it's interesting, because if someone was to trip over from outside premises here on our premises, they would sue us, not necessarily the landlord. So isn't Facebook the landlord here? How come, do you think it's strange that Facebook kind of gets out of this, that the social media platforms are like, it's not our fault, you did it, even though it's on someone's page? And how can you expect business owners to be awake all day, all night to check for any defamatory comments that are uploaded in the comments section?
Yeah, it's tough. Like, it is really challenging. And firstly, let's sort of unpack that a bit. So yes, the platforms they pick and choose when they want to get involved. So there's no consistency there. So they wanted to stop some information sometimes, but then with other information, they're like, oh no, we're a platform of free speech. So there's really no consistency. And then yes, of course, like there are tools and things where businesses can use social listening tools that will send them and notify them. But you're right, like if we live in, social media is like 24 hours a day. So
Yeah.
of course, how can you monitor that 24 hours a day? It is very, very difficult. And what I find, especially with small business owners, that's not their key area of expertise. Like their area is their business. And then they've got this other monster of social media that they're supposed to be looking after as well. And so that's when you sort of need someone to help you with that side of
I
things.
guess the other side of things, as you mentioned though, is that a lot of people only write comments if they've had a negative experience rather than going on to write positive reviews. In fact, we tend to look towards positive feedback as if it's been faked by the business, and we look for the negative reviews. When we're looking to decide whether we're going to get involved with a business, we want to see how bad was the situation that other people went through, their experience, and decide whether or not we could put up with it or whether there's someone better. Is it just human nature?
I think so. I mean, I do it too, particularly if I'm traveling and I go to TripAdvisor and I look at a hotel and yeah, the first thing I look at the negative reviews and when they were. So if it was a couple of years ago, I think, oh, maybe it's not so bad now. And I look at the more recent reviews. But yeah, totally. I think it is human nature because we do want to see how bad it is before we look at the positives. So before we make our decision.
All right, Dr. Karen Sutherland, the University of the Sunny Coast. Thanks so much for joining us. Talk to you next week.
Pleasure. Thanks. See you.